Welcome to The Lens, hosted by Catalysis, where we get a glimpse inside healthcare organizations that are transforming to a culture of improvement to deliver continually higher value outcomes for patients, staff, and communities. Visit createvalue.org/The Lens for more information about Catalysis.
Thank you for tuning into The Lens. I'm your host, Peter Mariahazi. The COVID-19 vaccine is on the minds of everyone around the world. Here in the U.S., the vaccine rollout can be very different depending on state, county, or even the city you're in. We hope that by sharing work that is going on in healthcare organizations, we can help others that may not be as far along in the rollout, or help others improve their processes. Today, I'm joined by team members from Torrance Memorial Hospital, a member organization of the Catalysis Healthcare Value Network. We have Jeremiah Hargrave, Yasmin Melgoza, Leah Romine, Christopher Bacon, who will share about their COVID-19 vaccination process and how it was developed. Thank you all for joining us today.
We're happy to be here. We're happy to be a part of this.
Great. Well, to start us off, why don't each of you introduce yourselves, tell us a little bit about your role at Torrance Memorial and what your role was in development of the COVID-19 vaccination process.
Okay, so my name is Chris Bacon, and I'm the Director of Employee Health here at Torrance Memorial. And my role basically is I was one of the core team of people who kind of plan this process and, put things together. We had to, do a lot of brainstorming, sit down and try to think of all of the issues that may come up and how best to keep the process streamlined. And, it was a pretty tough process, but, we all put our heads together and we were able to come up with something that turned out to be truly amazing. So it's been a really great experience, and the clinic has been going really, really well. We have had very, very few issues so far on the whole, so things are going well.
Great, thank you, Chris. Leah, how about you?
Hi, my name's Leah Romine. I'm actually the clinical director of maternal child health services. So it's not really a natural transition for me to go from mommies and babies and having babies over to working in a vaccine clinic, but somehow we made it happen. I got pulled in a little bit later on in the planning process, mainly to help with designing and operationalizing our actual clinic. So figuring out how we were going to move people through the vaccination process. So that was my role, and that's what my focus was.
Great. Yasmin?
This is Yasmin Melgoza. I'm a process excellence specialist here at Torrance Memorial Medical Center for the OID team. That's the organizational improvement team. I was involved in the COVID-19 process with creating visual management, standard operating procedures, process flow, and so much more with a great team.
Excellent. Jeremiah, how about you?
I'm Jeremiah Hargrave. I'm the Director of Quality and Organizational Improvement at Torrance. My role is really to support the team, and the biggest support I do is I try to fill all those spots to all the administrative spots, get vaccinators. So I'm the staffing guy on this one, and then support with process improvement however I can.
As you were talking about the operationalizing the process, Leah, I was wondering, the listeners may want to know, are you guys primarily the Pfizer or the Moderna vaccine?
The Pfizer.
Great, thank you. So Leah, walk us through your process at a high level.
Sure. So our clinic starts with a check-in. You're going to get your temperature screened as you come into our clinic. You're going to go through 4 stations after that. So once you get screened and you're all cleared to come in, you're going to come to our check-in station where you check in. You'll give your information. You'll get a ticket to ride. You'll take that ticket to ride over to the vaccination station where you'll receive your vaccine. Your ticket to ride gets filled out a little bit further by the RN that vaccinates you. You then go to an observation station where you are observed post-vaccine, which is part of the Pfizer and CDC requirement once you get the COVID vaccine. So you'll be observed by a registered nurse for 15 minutes. And then once that's completed, you'll go to a checkout station where you will turn in your ticket to ride and the process will be completed. So amongst all that, we try to create a really pleasant environment. We hand out water and Tylenol to our staff to help with the minor pain they might have after the injection. We have music playing. Sometimes our chaplain comes and plays his ukulele, live music, which is really nice. We have a photo booth where people can take selfies and post on social media that they got the vaccine and encourage others to do so as well. So it's a really nice environment, and we try to make it pleasant for people coming through, as well as make it quick, the whole process very quick.
I love the idea of the live music, and the idea of a ukulele is very unique. Definitely put a smile on people's faces.
It does.
So Yasmin, with you being the process person, what considerations were important to incorporate when developing this process?
Absolutely. So the first thing that we had to consider was keeping a 6 feet apart distance within the process. So there was some MUDA in there, but that was just for safety of the people working in the clinic. Another thing was the number of vaccines that were available to us at Torrance Memorial Medical Center, as well as the number of people that were needed for the clinic vaccine. So for each station, we actually did a cycle time. So it was very important to know how long each process was going to take and how many people we can capture in our total amount of our clinics. As well, revising the SOPs. So we started off with a draft SOP with me, Chris, and Leah, just to get a baseline, but we actually kept revising with the people actually doing the work, as this was gonna be continuing on and so much on. Another thing that we had to consider was that vaccine, once it's diluted, it's only good for 1 hour. So we were trying to create some process where we could capture 5 people for the vaccine, but if we're using overfill, it'll be 6 people. So that was a little bit complicated, but with the help of Chris and Leah, we'll talk a little bit more about what they created for our process so we could capture that.
You know, I'm sure in creating a complex situation like this, Chris, talk us about how do you start in creating the process? I mean, I'm sure the people who are listening are going, well, what's my first step? What do I need to, where do I begin?
Okay, yeah, so basically the way we started here, it started honestly with the pharmacy team in terms of communicating with the county and determining how we even get the vaccine into the hospital in the first place. I mean, you know, you can plan as much as you want for the clinic, but if you don't have the vaccine to administer, then it's really no good, right? So we have an amazing pharmacy team here, and you know, Tammy Gender, she's the director of pharmacy, and she was able to gather all of the necessary information for us to, you know, verify, you know, how to apply and when we're going to get it, how much we're going to get. Now, while that was happening, we pretty much had a lot of brainstorming sessions. So we were writing down, you know, what a clinic would look like. You know, how did we want it to look? How did we want it to flow? You know, we initially were going to have, you know, one entrance and exit, but then of course with social distancing, that wasn't a good idea. So we had to find a location on campus where there was one way in, one way out. So we have one constant flow of traffic. And then, you know, once we had all that brainstorm down, then we were like, okay, well, now how do we actually administer? How do we take them through the process? So we knew that we wanted to have a check-in and check-out. We knew that we had to actually administer it into their arms. And we knew that we had to watch them, you know, per the Pfizer and CDC, right? So we're okay, well, how do we do that in a way where we can maintain social distancing while at the same time making this a pleasant and streamlined experience for all of the participants? So we came up with the idea of doing different stations. So once we had that mapped out, it looked very different. It looks very different now than how it looked originally, of course. we had the stations in a way that it wasn't really streamlined. Once we did a walkthrough and we realized that it wasn't going to work in a real situation, we had to tweak it, which is why we had Yasmin and her team come and help us out, to kind of fine tune things a little bit. But then, so once we brainstormed and once we had the draft down, we did a walkthrough to kind of see how it would work. Once we saw that certain things weren't working, we tweaked it and changed the different stations to do different things. And then even as Leah said, and Yasmin said, once we started actually doing the clinic in real time, we further tweaked the different stations. Like, for example, in the final checkout station, right now, currently, all we're doing is we're having them turn in their ticket to ride. We're asking if they have any side effects and verifying their name and date of birth, and then say, okay, well, have a great day, going about your life and enjoy yourself, essentially. But before, what we were doing was we were handing out paperwork and we were handing out stickers, and it just became very convoluted, So then what we did was we moved that from the fourth station to the third station, which is part of the observation station. And we figured while they're waiting for 15 minutes anyway, we might as well hand out the paperwork there and let them read it as they're sitting down, which made a lot more sense looking back. Can't believe we didn't think about that to begin with. but I mean, that's essentially what we did. So it was a lot of drafts, a lot of walkthroughs, a lot of trying to see what works and what didn't. And then once we felt like we had a good idea, we went live with it. And then we just further tweaked it as the days went on. Leah and I are both here, pretty much every day. And we're looking to see, how the flow is going. And at the end of each clinic, we're meeting and determining, okay, what worked and what didn't work. And whatever didn't work, we try to come up with a way to try to make it flow a little better. But of course, it's not just us. We have a huge team of people, but, we're tweaking as we go.
Well, I have to applaud you. I mean, you're very much incorporating the PDSA or PDCA, adjusting process as you go, and you're doing it very rapidly, which I think, is something that you don't often see. We're humans that get set into our routine and just don't get used to those adjustments. So what challenges did you face along the way? You talked a little bit about a few, but what other challenges did you experience on the way?
Well, again, so some of the challenges were trying to streamline the process. Now we have music and we have all of these other great things that we're doing, but we didn't have that initially. People were kind of sitting there quietly initially, it was kind of an eerie silence, so we were thinking, we need something to liven up the atmosphere, but again, in terms of challenges, it was difficult to gather the necessary information that we needed to make sure that we were abiding by the LA County's guidelines, by the CDC's guidelines, by Pfizer's recommendations, so it was a lot of investigating, a lot of reading to try to make sure that we're adhering to everything that we were supposed to ensure that we were doing the right things, I guess one of the main challenges that we had was just in terms of the speed of everything that we had to do. So from the time we were told that we were going to hold the clinic here at the hospital, we basically had a week to put the whole thing together, so we had to there were a lot of long days, late nights, just, meetings after meetings, just to try to determine how best to do this process. And then, we tried to build a EMR system that we can use for our system in terms of, having some kind of documentation system for people that are getting their shots. But then, we found out about PrepMod, which is from, county, and PrepMod it's great in certain circumstances, but not great in others. So, that was a challenge, just having to learn how to do that. They didn't even open it up to us to use it, in live until a couple of days before we were actually going to use it. So a lot of it was in the testing platform. And even with that, the one that was for LA County went down. So then we had to use one for Maryland. And it was just, it was a lot going on. So it was pretty tough, and then we had to try to figure out how best to notify people that we were having the clinic. That was a challenge too, because it's okay, well, now we set the clinic up, now we have the vaccine, how do we get people into the clinic? And so, of course, with the staff here, we have everybody's staff email addresses. So we sent out a mass email to all staff with the links to the clinic. And it was difficult, honestly, because one link goes to one clinic day only, right? And if we're having clinics every day, we have to keep sending out different links. And then what we discovered was that people were sharing the links with their friends and family, and the links ended up in places they shouldn't have been. So, and of course, because the hospital is following the guidelines of LA County, we're focusing on Tier 1A, which is to vaccinate the healthcare workers, and so, we had to continuously monitor the registration list to see and make sure that everyone that was on it was actually a healthcare worker here at Torrance, and for those that weren't, like, we found whole families that were registered, and we had to call them and, say, hey, if you're not an employee or if you're not a healthcare worker, unfortunately, we can't vaccinate you right now. So that was a challenge, having to constantly, monitor the registration list. And then another issue was that, Leah and I were made as the 2 point people for the entire facility. So if anybody had any questions, comments, concerns about registering, we were getting all of the emails. So we were getting probably a couple hundred emails between the two of us, with people having difficulties registering. The program is self-registering. So if they put in their email address wrong, they weren't getting the follow-up emails to come back for the second shots. And, some people didn't know how to use the system. Some people aren't really computer inclined. So, it's difficult for them as well. So we had to help some to, register, over the phone and, just things like that. But, at the end of the day, everything worked out. And I think now we have a really, really good flow, and we pretty much every problem that we could have had, we've had. And so now it's just a matter of just keeping it running.
Sounds like you experienced the old adage that technology works great until it doesn't.
Yes.
So Yasmin, as the one helping them with the processes, kind of being the person not on the outside, but on the outside kind of helping them, what kind of challenges did you see?
I remember when 1 week in, one of the challenges was that supply shortage. I don't know if you guys remember, which were the Band-Aids. On the outside, I was searching and hunting down for Band-Aids. We didn't know we were going to run out so much, and we had to just find an alternative, but it's okay. We're good now. So looking at the outside, I was looking more like, do we have enough supplies? How many people are we going to get vaccinated for the day? And then just reach out to like our stakeholders for like our warehouse and our pharmacy. Yeah, so I think that was just one of the challenges that I saw outside.
I'd imagine they were
successful.
Yeah, and I would imagine they were very happy having you as a kind of a sounding board too, to be able to say, hey, this is what we're running into. What do you think? What can we think about? What can we do? It's always good having that outside eye. So Leah, what has been the biggest learning as this process has been rolling out? What's the thing you really grab onto and take away from a learning perspective?
Well, I think number one, I'm really glad I went through the whole Lean program and I'm Lean certified, because that really helped me understand flow, how to map out a process, how to move through that process, how to tweak it as we go through. So, like Chris said, we would look at, okay, where in our process are we bottlenecked? Where are we wasting time? Where are people standing in line, and how can we fix that? And we would go in and we'd fix it. So it was really nice that we could create something like this on such a large scale, yet have it be efficient, have our customers move through and be happy with their service that they received, and also be able to take essentially what we did here and rubber stamp it and create the same thing anywhere else. Anyone else could do it, which is really neat. It's not just unique to us. This is something that anybody could do once they understand our process. And I think that that's a source of pride for our little group.
That's a great observation, Leah. So, Chris, and maybe anybody else, what advice would you give to anybody? As we said in the opening, not everybody's going to be as far along the process as you are. So what advice would you give to anyone who may still be developing their vaccination process?
I mean, I would tell, the first thing I would tell them is to get a good team of people together. I mean, that's the most important thing. I mean, I couldn't have done it by myself, and I'm sure everybody else feels the same way. This truly takes a team to pull this off, you know. So I would say get a team of maybe 3 or 4 people or so, and work very closely. You know, draft out your ideas. You know, try to discover or to try to determine, you know, what some of the potential problems will be. You know, maybe do a walkthrough or two just to try to see in real time how it will go. Because you know what we did actually, we didn't mention this yet, but what we did actually was we did a live walkthrough the day before we were actually going live. So we've been doing about 600 to 700 people per clinic, but that day before our first day, we did 10 people, or actually 13, right?
Mhm.
We did 13 people. You know, just on a small scale, just to try to see how each station will work and to make sure that everything we planned worked out. So I would strongly recommend that people do that. So before they go actually live for a mass clinic, do a small one where maybe no more than 10 to 20 people, and then, you know, get their feedback and ask the participants, you know, how they felt about the process, what they felt could have been done differently or better. I think that helps as well, you know. Another thing is make sure they have all their ducks in a row, so to speak. You know, they need to know exactly what the county is recommending or requiring. You know, they need to know what tier they're in, who actually is supposed to be in their tier, who they're supposed to be vaccinating at the moment, and devise a really good system to try to identify those people and communicate with those who they will be vaccinating. And then just try to maintain order with the list. You know, that's something that was kind of a challenge, you know, but they have to be really good at keeping an eye on the list to make sure that those that are supposed to be in the tier they're supposed to vaccinate are actually supposed to be on the list or their registration list, you know. And then after that, you know, just sit back and enjoy your work. That's the biggest thing.
That's great, Chris. So I'm going to kind of go around the room here. Leah, any final thoughts you want to share with our listeners?
Yeah, I think a core team is critical to making a venture like this successful, and just really appreciative of the team that I've been able to work with, and being able to put lean methodology into practice.
Great. Yasmin?
My advice would be able to adapt to rapid improvements when you're creating the process, as well be creative, because we're so limited on what we can and cannot do. So it doesn't have to be fancy, be creative.
Great. Chris, any final thoughts?
Sure. Yeah. So, and going forward, you know, we are, as I said before, we're taking direction from LA County in terms of when to progress to the following tiers, you know, tier 2 and so on and so forth. So we're excited to try to vaccinate more people. We're excited to open it up in the next couple of weeks to the next tier. So next up, we're planning on trying to get to those 65 and over within a certain area around our hospital, you know. And then from there, you know, we'll follow LA County's guidelines on who to vaccinate and when. But the good thing is, because we've planned really well, whenever we have to open up tiering to the next you know, group of people, we should be able to do it relatively easily. You know, we have our template in place, and it's just a matter of putting in those that need to get their shots. You know, we're excited to be able to try to vaccinate as many people as we can.
Good. Sounds like you have the foundation set. Jeremiah, you've done a great job supporting the team, letting them, you know, explain everything. Do you have any final thoughts you'd like to share with our listeners?
Yeah, I think I echo what all of my colleagues have said, but also I think it's really important, you know, have your lean principles at hand, do your time studies, get your SOPs, because as Leah and Chris and Yasmin, they're there training people. I bring people in and I watch them train. You know, we have a lot of people rotating through these positions. So there's a lot of training, but the SOPs are really detailed. They're on every station. So like Leah will do a great job training, and Chris, and but people will still have questions, and hopefully those SOPs will let Leah and Chris stay freed up to do some of the other things they need to do. And from a time study standpoint, we know exactly how many people we need. We know exactly how many people we can get through in an hour, in a day. We can scale our staffing based on that very easily at this point. Our biggest limitation right now is really space. If we had more space, we would be doing a lot more. And the last thing last couple things, I guess, is if you're not already working on planning this, start now, because eventually, you're going to have to do it. And you don't want to be stuck in, we were in that situation that Chris and Leah mentioned, hey, next week or in 3 days, we're going to start vaccinating people. So figure it out.
Yeah.
Because it's a time crunch just from a process standpoint, but then there's still, when we're running a 12-hour clinic, you need about 40 people working different stations. So getting those people isn't always the easiest. So reach out to your community. We had a great response from our physicians on staff, and we don't employ physicians in California. So we had to reach out to all the community physicians, and also reach out to schools that you work with. A lot of our vaccinations are given by students now. If they need clinical hours, they come to our hospital. We just bring them into the clinic, and it's a great resource for us. And it's really good training for them. And that's the next batch of nurses that are coming through. So it's been really awesome. And reach out to people. We're happy to share what we've done. That's why we shared those documents. And the team has done a great job of really being detailed on SOPs and diagrams. And we're happy to help.
Sounds like you guys are also really practicing transparency, thinking systemically, communicating. Sounds like a great team working together, because all of you have different skills you're bringing. And to the point you made, Jeremiah, we do have visuals you've shared with us. We'll make those available through the Catalysis website. So thank you all for joining us today and sharing about the work on the COVID-19 vaccination process at Torrance Memorial. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
To our listeners, visit our COVID-19 resource page at createvalue.org to find more information and learning around navigating the COVID-19 pandemic. Please stay tuned for more episodes designed to help healthcare leaders support their organizations on a journey to organizational excellence.
Thank you for listening. Visit createvalue.org/the lens to learn more about how Catalysis can inspire you to accelerate change in your organization.